We are live here in Miami and elsewhere with Krystina on the road. Practical Creativity, where we unpack the creative process and so we can see how it works in the lives of amazing and regular people. All of the regular people I know are amazing. So yourself included, Krystina. So Krystina François, the amazing, brilliant leader, organizer, complete badass. Please tell us what you're up to right now and a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so hi everybody. Thank you, Marte, for having me on one of your crucial conversations. I love watching them. So I am the executive director of the Office of New Americans, and we are an initiative to help the more than 500,000 eligible green card holders become citizens.
Woohoo!
So I'm passionate about citizenship, and it's so timely that we have this conversation.
Yes, and we're having this conversation, which is timely in so many ways. It happens to be Juneteenth.
It is.
If people don't know what that is, that's kind of the beginning of the end of the beginning of the end of slavery.
Correct. A little confusing, but super important.
Yeah, right. So the Emancipation Proclamation was announced January 1st, 1863, and there were still holdings on of that not being actually shared with the enslaved people.
Right.
In Texas on June 19th, 1865, almost 2.5 years later, they actually were notified that they were released from that state. So this is a happy day. This is an amazing day. And given everything that's happening in the world right now, what a beautiful Friday and a way to kick off our weekend, but also to spend time and share space with one of my favorite women who cares also about Black women and immigrants, and you're all of those things. So Krystina, tell us a little bit more. What are you doing to celebrate Juneteenth?
So as you can see, I am in the car. So I'm actually spending time with my family. But I had another awesome conversation earlier today talking about the state of current affairs. And really, I like to highlight my intersections as a Black immigrant woman, right? I am all those things at once. And it's interesting to celebrate freedom and liberation in this country on this day, in this current moment that we're living through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love your shirt. You are a phenomenal woman. And
thank you.
When we talk, and we're close friends, we talk several times a week, and we're accountability partners, which I love. So I know a lot about what you're up to and what you're passionate about, and same with me. But I remember there was a moment this year when you said, I'm all about Black people, women, and immigrants, and I'm going to go for it. This is what I'm focused on right now, and it's who I am. So tell us how's that going, and tell us a little bit more about the Office of New Americans. Obviously, we're here to talk creativity. We want to know about what the citizenship looks like, but let's take a step back for a minute.
Yeah. So I'm a first generation Haitian American, and my parents' immigrant experience has shaped my understanding of my sense of self, right? I am born in the United States, like born and raised in New York, currently living in Miami. That is how we are accountability sisters. And really having an understanding of like our laws and rules and when you can't do, and layering that with being Black and knowing that like there's perception and there's a cultural divide, and there are just all of these different things that I have had to navigate in this one body, right? That has made me hyper aware of other people and other cultures and other signaling and all of these things, but also made me more intentional about how I want to show up in the world. And that's been manifested most in my work. So it was I've been so fortunate to always live a mission-driven life and have a mission-driven work that is aligned with my identity. And so with the Office of New Americans, I'm really, number one, paying it forward to all of the people who are trying to figure out how to be a U.S. citizen. So we do a lot of community education, a a lot of myth busting. There's so much misconception around immigration and knowing your rights. And everybody fundamentally wants to do the right thing and wants to make this country home. And so how can we give everybody the tools that they need to be able to reach their end goal, which is U.S. citizenship and being a full and active participant in their community.
Amazing. I love what you're saying, because it makes me think about just this country and this place, Miami, being a place where people belong, but they don't really belong. So I don't know what kinds of conversations you've been having lately, but I was in one yesterday. It was a discussion primarily with white women about like intersectionality and how to be anti-racist. It was a really good conversation, but it came up that Miami is highly, highly segregated, right? So finding a way to help people who are new here feel like they belong is not necessarily like a straight pathway. It's okay, you're in the car. Okay. So
I was like, I stopped moving though.
You did. Okay, very good. You're almost to your destination. So what do you do to help people who are new here or who don't belong? Like, you do a lot of work also in I think you're one of the biggest hearted, most generous people I know, with your own time and your own spirit and your own expertise. And you're volunteering and you're serving, and that's just who you are. You're a steward of the community. So you're in a lot of places. What are you seeing about helping people belong, and what are the steps that you think we all could take to help people feel more like they belong?
I mean, I have learned, I wouldn't say the hard way, but through experience, that really identifying, owning, and accepting our differences are how we actually learn what we have in common. Because even the differences that we may have on the surface level reveal through being vulnerable and open with each other how we all have the same human condition, right? We all have fears and insecurities and concerns, and are faced with similar challenges, and have to make choices every single day. And so really, that human connection, that one-to-one connection, is why and how I show up in community. And so you can't really do community-based work without loving people. You have to fundamentally believe in human goodness and kindness, and love, like you like to say, to be able to do the work. And so that takes a level of openness and vulnerability for you to be able to have impact, because the only way to see the change that we want is for us to have trust. And I think that's apparent with any social upheaval, with starting a new job, with moving to a new neighborhood, just starting school, starting class at a new school. All of that takes a little bit of courage and vulnerability. And just that one person and that one connection can change your perception of your lived environment. That's the difference between feeling safe or not. That's the difference between showing up for somebody else or paying it forward or picking up your trash. Like, all of the little acts of consideration that make our community whole are so rooted in the interpersonal and courage.
Amazing. And Tina here on Instagram is saying, yes, it is. That's how it is. So loving people and creating trust through vulnerability. I often, I don't know if it was Brene Brown or somebody else, but I've heard somewhere that we think that other people should be vulnerable and then we'll trust them, but it's actually the other way, right?
Right. So, and it's hard.
It is hard. It's especially hard when we're looking to cross, those intersections into understanding and really like being and listening and understanding and building something together, building a new way. This is uncharted territory for a place that is very highly like segregated. So I love what you said also, which is it's kind of about starting small. So especially if it's not something that a person's experience or a place or a new job, like you're saying, but starting small, starting with the person to person, I think is a message we're not really hearing. There is a lot happening right now, and there's a lot of like big scale things happening. And I think some people are feeling really pressured to like do a big thing, but that might not fit for everybody. So even just thinking about starting small, starting one-to-one, I think that's so helpful. So what are some of those one-to-one steps you think people can do either around citizenship or belonging or whatever else?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many civic engagement opportunities right now. So, and I'm sure that those of you listening have a clue what's happening. So we have the census, we have major elections at the state and local and national level. We have a racial justice movement awakening, really, where everybody's at the point where they realize that like anti-Blackness is not just a Black issue, but it's everybody's issue, and it shows up in everybody's life, and it shows up in institutional ways and cultural ways and all of the things. And so it can feel overwhelming to see like, what is my actual role? What is it that I can actually do? And I think part of it is showing up for the people who are already in your life, right? How can you deepen the relationships that you already have instead of thinking, okay, I'm gonna, I have this coworker that I don't really know and I'm gonna reach out to them and see how they're doing in this moment. You don't need to start at that point. It can really be about how do I show up better for the people who are already in my life and be an authentic relationship. And I have been introduced to so many different networks and ideas and just awesome people from one person in my life inviting me to something, telling me to read this thing, telling me, there are a lot of great book clubs going on right now as people are trying to navigate this new reality on top of the global pandemic. Sorry, how could I forget COVID?
Right.
Which is unreal. So like, we're trying to be racial justice experts and epidemiologists and great feminists and all of the things at once. And so I think one is checking in with your people. The other is, if you don't know, research. There's so many, for those of us that are fortunate to be at home, there are so many resources. I guarantee you, any question that you could possibly have, the answer exists on the internet, and you are not the first person to think about it. So do your research and think critically, and take that same courage, that's the interpersonal, to also apply to yourself, for you to get to a level of comfortability before moving forward into a larger action. There are a lot of things that you can also do. Like, for example, did you complete your census? I will make the census plug.
I did.
It is so important. We hear about budgets being a conversation. The census is like crucial for budgets, crucial for your congressional districts and all of those things. And then I'm just thinking of solitary actions. The other thing is like, there are a ton of petitions, right? So do your research and then see if there's a petition engaging the level, whether it's a corporate, I'm not going to say target, but a corporate person to engage, or an elected official, or another authority figure.
Yeah.
See if there's a petition that you can do. That's like an easy stuff that you can begin with.
Totally. That's so great. And the Copper Portico here on Instagram says, yes, starting with people already in your life, heart emoji, star emoji. So starting small, that is so helpful. And I know that in the arts, I mean, I can't think of a potentially more obvious example of like white power and systems than, the arts. We literally build palaces, right, to this whole thing. So, and it, even fundraising. So as an arts person, also, I've been looking out for, what can I do? And so obviously I'm sharing resources. I'm learning a lot. I'm having conversations, but I signed a petition that's like de-white professional theater. And there are people actually doing change.org petitions around any kind of topic you can imagine. So that's really concrete. And actually, Corey Davis, who was on, in April, he was talking a lot about the census. Maven Leadership is doing a lot with that as well. So, and I know that there was a day of action recently, but people don't realize the census is how we get funded for our neighborhoods by the government. So if you're not getting counted, we're losing out potentially on revenue for our neighborhoods and for the places that we live, schools, hospitals, all these things are so important. Tina here is saying she's making point shoes in all shades. Oh, making point shoes in all shades. Yes,
yeah,
the art,
nice.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I also there were 5 dancers who recently like called out their dance companies for not being inclusive or equitable, and so I'm really bolstered by hearing about that. So that's just the arts. But tell us more. Like, what does citizenship mean to you, and what does it mean to maybe even be creative with it? So you just gave us a couple of examples, but let's focus in on like citizenship. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so it's interesting to be talking about citizenship on this day because the definition of citizenship in the United States has always been reactionary. So, really, up until the Emancipation Proclamation, the personhood and role of Black Americans was not factored into the equation. Also, women weren't factored into the equation. People who didn't own land weren't factored into the equation.
Right.
So while our Constitution, which is our guiding legal document, was very ambitious and forward thinking, it was restricted in who it was actually applying to in the moment. And the biggest challenge to perfecting or coming closer to those ideals was the personhood of Black people. And so when we're on for Juneteenth, we're celebrating the actual full emancipation of Black people in this country. In terms of chattel slavery, there are other ways that has still yet to be fully realized. That we cannot talk about citizenship and naturalization and immigrants becoming citizens, or even natural born citizens becoming civically active, without honoring that root. So the 14th Amendment and many civil rights cases like the Dred Scott decision all were moments where we had to actually define what citizenship was and who was or was not, who were and were not citizens. So then through various court cases, initially applying to Black people, but then also to other immigrants that were coming over time, we said, how can you become a citizen, right? And that's the realm that I work in day to day, where there is an application process. You have to do a background check. You have to get interviewed. You have to know U.S. history and civics at a level that is beyond what most natural born Americans know about. And you have to demonstrate good moral character, and there are statutes upon statutes about the most arbitrary things that are not even misdemeanors in our laws that say that this shows that you don't have a good enough character to be an American. And there's a cost associated, which is over $700 and is set to increase. And so our program is never ending because there are layers to this, and immigration law is the second most complex and most frequently updated law in our entire legal system. So you have folks who really love this country, have decided to move here, take the risk of leaving everything they know to come to this country because they believe in the idea of America, and put their time and energy into their communities, into their jobs, into their families, and their neighbors, and then have a green card and apply for citizenship, and they're lost. They're totally lost. They want to do this the right way. They don't want to mess up, and this is an expensive decision as well, right? And so our programming is to demystify the whole thing, to make sure that people are not getting taken advantage of and given the wrong information. We have citizenship classes to make sure that people are prepared for the interview, because that is just like any interview you experience in your life.
Yeah.
Interviews are intimidating, even when you know the questions.
Just really nervous.
Your information. Exactly. So, and we are going to be launching the New American Fund, where we're going to be offering stipends to cover the application fee for New Americans. So, citizenship, the process I just went over, but the actual action of being a citizen, it's a responsibility and a right. That's how I think about it. If you are in a community and you live there, you have friends there, you have family there, you're working there, you're going to school there, you're going to the beach, you're engaging in the physical space, then there's a responsibility that comes with that, right? And so that does mean that if you see that there's something that's not right, you speak up. If you think that there's something that needs to change, you advocate. If you don't know about how something works, you do your research. And the best thing is that, like, we all, given the sacrifice and convictions of people who've come before us, have the freedom to actually be a part of the process the entire step of the way, from a county budget to policy priorities to how much money is going to schools to what's in the curriculum in our schools to, you know, what rights should we have as workers. So I can go on, but there's
That's
just
so
so
great.
much you can
It's
do.
so great. I love what you're saying, which is, and Lillian here, Lillian Santini is watching on Instagram, and she says they don't make it easy to become a citizen. And you know, there really is a responsibility. But I love what you're saying also about how your character is important when you're coming in, and that's not something that, I mean, when we talk about American ideals, and I'm a natural born citizen. But my grandparents were immigrants and et cetera. But so I heard a lot of those kinds of stories growing up and what that was like. But in terms of, you know, just being an American, if you're naturally born here, you may not be thinking about having a responsibility to have character. And I know a lot of that comes from the way that you're raised, and, you know, if you're spiritual or religious or whatever, but really thinking about, you have a responsibility to show up and do the right thing. So that's really important, I think, for people to hear, because you do have a responsibility and you have the right, and all of these things that are surrounding us that we just take for granted, you know, the sewers, and, you know, that there are schools to educate our kids, and that we can show up and vote and speak at commission meetings, which is not user friendly. I've done that
Right.
myself, and like, it does not seem designed, and maybe it's different now that we're online, but it does not seem to be inclusive and a place where you feel like you belong. There's jargon, there's like this whole process that if you're new and you're not doing this every day because it's your job, it's like very intimidating. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But really having a responsibility to show up and to see, like, I lived in New York during 9/11. It was like signs everywhere. If you see something, say something. If you see a suspicious package or something just, you know, that looks weird, or something feels weird, you know, like people are abandoning packages on the subway, like, you got to say something, because that keeps us all safe. So that's really good. Tell us more about the programs of the Office of New Americans. Like, what kinds of things are you all doing to help orient people? And are people who are already citizens welcome to join in or to share about those? Like, what can people who are already here do in support of your work?
Yeah, so we have so one of the innovations that came out of this pandemic is that all of our programming is online now. So
Totally
we are it's way more accessible than we were before. Before, we were running our programs out of the Miami-Dade County Public Libraries. Now we're online. So every week we have information sessions on our Facebook page. It's the Office of New Americans of Miami-Dade. And you also can always reach out to us via email or phone if you have any questions. We have virtual application assistance, so you can actually start your application online using citizenshipworks.org, and then be connected with a qualified legal volunteer with us in the Florida Immigrant Coalition to get your application completed for free. And then we have study materials, we have citizenship classes, like I mentioned, which are also online, that we're doing in partnership with Hispanic Unity. And we know that navigating this pandemic has been difficult. And so we have been putting a lot of resources together for immigrant-owned businesses, or immigrant-powered businesses, as well as just navigating. Depending on your immigration status, you may or may not be eligible for certain relief. So we like break that down for you all. We had a really great town hall with a bunch of folks actually talking about that. It's on our YouTube channel. And in terms of if you are already a citizen, Well, we do definitely have ways to engage with us. We are always looking for volunteers to serve as like a mentor or a coach to aspire a new American, as well as communications and marketing and translation. We want to get language justice is really important to me. Yes, a large chunk of our population speaks Spanish, but we have a variety of folks that speak Thai and Burmese and Russian and French, and we do have a very diverse immigrant group, and so we're always looking for people to help translate our materials and our videos with us. And then we also obviously would love financial support for us to be able to pay it forward before the fees increase in the next couple of months. We are kicking off this fund. You can go to our website, the officeofnewamericans.org, and I will make sure to drop that in the comments after. To donate to the fund so that the more money we raise, the more citizenship applications we can sponsor, and there will be more people civically engaged in this community. So it's a win-win for everybody.
That's so great. So many resources. And I love that you said you have a YouTube page. So everyone watching here now can go on to YouTube and find Office of New Americans, subscribe, like, comments, make sure that they're up in the algorithm. I think that's so fantastic. And yes, we'll post all of these, all of the links that we've talked about in the show notes so that everyone can peruse and get involved at their leisure. So tell us, did you want to say something about your upcoming campaign around this fund and kind of the fun part of what it might look like?
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to be, speaking of creativity, fundraising in creative ways. So we are actually going to be launching a merch line. So we'll have t-shirts and tote bags and pins that like Marte got a sneak peek of and has already called dibs on some of them. But the idea is that it's all around citizen, right? So our main shirt is citizen, but we have active citizen, empowered citizen, and new citizen. So knowing that 100% of the proceeds of the merch are going to the fund.
Evan thinks that's so cool. I agree. I personally want there to be one that says creative citizen, but anyway, I'm biased.
And the second launch.
Okay, that sounds good. So yeah, so everyone who gets some of the merch is supporting Office of New Americans, the great work you do. I also have so much love and respect for you in other ways other than your professional life. You are one of the biggest hearted, most generous, loving people I know. And I want to hear more about your own individual practice. So how do you stay inspired? How do you stay creative? And what do you recommend? I mean, this is hard work. This is a hard time, but there's hope. But it's a long journey. So how can people stay inspired, or what do you do that helps you stay inspired?
So it's funny because normally we think that men are the most concerned about legacy and the future, when actually like what I am leaving behind for future generations is really what drives me, right? In just being raised in the principle of leaving things better off than how you found it. And I know that I stand on the shoulders of so many people before me. And so that is where I get my source of inspiration. But particularly in this moment, there is some really badass organizing that is happening around this country and around the globe. And I recommend going to the Movement for Black Lives Instagram and watching their videos. And just the like creativity, ingenuity. I talk about like polyrhythmic like layering of like the audio in the video, and just seeing like diverse bodies like ants like all over the globe who are standing up for justice. Like that like gives me goosebumps. I like cried watching these videos.
I love it.
Like, this is why we're doing this in this moment. And it also reminds me that I'm not alone in this fight for a more perfect union. So yeah, it really, it's funny that it's not even my personal practice of like insular things that I'm doing. It's just seeing community and being in community. And I think that now more than ever, that's important, especially if we don't feel a personal connection. Like just seeing the energy of other people has always been helpful to me in uncertain times.
Totally. And my Sagittarius sister here, I get your passion. I get that. I feel it. It's tangible. It's awesome. People here. Oh, okay. So Evan says he wants creative citizen too. So we got dibs on round 2.
Yes. All right. All right.
Madeline is giving you a whole string of high 10s. So this is so great. Oh, and fire. She's got fire too. You're on fire.
Thank you, Madeline.
That's so great. I'm going to check that out. Movement for Black Lives Instagram and diverse bodies. Racial justice. Like, we're showing up. People are showing up and showing everything and their own creativity. And Instagram is such a visual platform. So it's really fantastic. So I know a little bit more about you in that you are a diehard plant mom.
Yes.
So I know you have found a way to nurture yourself also through some of your plants nurturing. So tell us a little bit, like, where do you get your plants? How do you get the plants to get, like, this is a creative activity, Krystina. Tell us about this.
I am. It's funny because before last year, I could never keep a plant alive, like, at all. Like, it was just not my thing. And as a parting gift, one of my cousins gave me a little star plant, and she's like, "I did all the research. You can't kill it. I promise." And I don't have great lighting everywhere in my apartment, so she wrote me like this letter, and it was like so heartfelt. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill this plant, but I'm invested in keeping it alive because my cousin Valerie got it for me, and whatever. And she was like, oh, and I got it from this little shop that's downstairs from your apartment. So it's called Pebble and Vine. Definitely check out Pebble and Vine. That is where I have. There are a woman-owned, amazing duo of sisters who have a very thoughtful shop. That it's not just like, oh, I have this is what's in stock for the season, but they're intentional about picking them, and they have a great selection of pots, and they have plant paraphernalia, pins and things that I personally love. So yeah, plants really do make me happy. I've got an app to help me actually water them so they stay alive.
Plant app. What is it?
It's called Planta.
Planta.
And it you can take a picture of it and it tells you what's wrong with the plant. It's really helpful.
Plant diagnostics. You heard it here first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting any funds for dropping these names, but I'm an evangelist about Pebble and Vine and the Planta app for sure.
Amazing. You're getting a lot of love here on Instagram. Green things, Plant Mama Supreme, Heart Eyes. Evan wants to know, is there a community advisory group for the Office of New Americans and Yes to Plant Life?
So we do not have a community advisory group yet. However, stay tuned because that's actually going to be part of the rollout of the fund. We're going to have a Friends of New Americans circle. So folks can be members of that and also get the hands-on one-on-one time with folks on their journey, and help shape our programming moving forward. So definitely stay tuned for that and make sure to follow us on social media where we will announce it, or subscribe to our newsletter. We're actually going to be rolling out some really great content for a monthly newsletter that will have more concrete ways to connect.
That is so great. Yes, we have to keep staying involved. And that's the thing about citizenship. It is a practice, just like music and the arts are a practice. There's something you work on, your own commitment to racial equity is a practice. So showing up for the community and showing up for amazing groups like Office of New Americans. Are there other places that people can get involved?
Yes. So switching off my own hat, I am also the co-founder of the Black Collective. Which, we are intergenerational, multi-ethnic nonprofit organization that's focused on developing a shared economic and political agenda for Black people in Florida. And so we've been doing census work, but we're also in this moment providing ways for folks to engage civically with the county commission and different levels of government to see the change that we want. So definitely follow us on the socials and sign up for our newsletter. And we have a mutual aid fund. So because of coronavirus and the economic instability and uncertainty, many people are struggling right now to be able to pay their bills and deal with medical costs. And so we had launched a mutual aid fund where we provide funds to about 20 individuals every week who are in need, and who live in Miami-Dade County. So you can support the fund and also learn more about how mutual aid is super important. That's a whole other conversation, but that's really great. And there are a bunch of organizations that are doing really great work right now in terms of youth leadership development, like Power U, the development of Black and Brown LGBTQ folks, like the Maven Leadership Collective. Soul Sisters Collective is about femme-identified youth, and they have some really great programming. I particularly am fond of organizations that like let people lead. Like if you're going to have a mission about a directly impacted group, you can't define what the agenda is for that group or how they're going to show up, but really just create the platform and the tools for people to make the change that they want. So definitely follow those. And there are a bunch of other organizations that I could laundry list. But we do have some great folks in South Florida that are doing the work, showing up with integrity and making sure that Miami is a place that we can all thrive in.
That is amazing. Thriving like plants, hopefully.
Yes.
Thriving.
We have to water them.
If only we had an app that told us what was wrong and how to fix it. But anyway, this is amazing. I also want to just, I see Corey says, hashtag Maven Leaders, thank you. Really happy for the shout out. I believe several of these groups have gotten some funding as part of a new Miami Foundation fund at the Miami Foundation,
Yes.
Which I forget the name of it, but it's something like Racial Equity Fund.
It's the Racial Equity Fund. Yeah.
Racial Equity Fund.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll put that in the notes as well. And it just helps me to, I appreciate what you're saying about not defining the agenda, but working with people to make a collective impact. So the idea of mutual aid and collective impact, and I'm going to bring it back to what I talked to Corey about, several weeks ago, which is like resiliency is a team sport.
It is.
Can get there if we all do our part and also work together in lockstep, side by side. And so it makes sense that you're a person who's involved in many things because you are the model in my life for somebody who, works collectively in many ways because of all of the aspects of your identity and all of the things you're passionate about, including everything we've talked about and also plants because that's fun.
Yes.
So Krystina, any last thoughts on creativity, on citizenship, on Juneteenth, on community and your passion for one-on-one and people?
Yeah, I mean, so I like to say that everybody, regardless of race, gender, economic status, ability, we all have the same three things: time, talent, and treasure. And so really you have to think about the creative ways that you can mobilize one or all of those things towards the issues that you care about so that you can see the change that you want. And so whether that is volunteering your time or donating your skill, if you're like a graphic designer or an accountant or an attorney or whatever you're or an artist, whatever your talent is, I guarantee you folks are in need of it. And your treasure is like your network. So sometimes it is your money, sometimes it's your access to people. As we talk about equity, not everybody has access to decision makers. So being that bridge for folks, taking the risk, and that is embodying vulnerability, right? Like
Totally.
It takes putting yourself out there, but for something that you believe in. And I believe that is paid forward in kind.
Agreed. And when you are a little uncomfortable, but you do it on behalf of helping people, that is received, right? So worth it. You're getting so much love here, so many beautiful hearts, and Krystina, just thank you for who you are and for everything that you embody, your spirit, your character, how you teach us, and how you share of yourself through your organizations and through just being such a beautiful light in our community. I want to thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me this afternoon. I hope you have a wonderful Juneteenth and wonderful weekend with your family. And thanks to all of you. We'll see you again on Monday. We're going to be meeting with Madeline Munoz Bustamante, who Krystina
Yay,
also very
darling!
well. So, and until then, we hope that you stay creative. Thank you.
Thank you.